Well, into the deep dive. Today, we're thinking about time, and tradition. How ancient societies, well, they didn't just live through time, they really structured it, giving seasons, harvests, everything, a kind of sacred meaning. Imagine that, a world where like every part of the calendar has this divinely appointed purpose. And that's our focus today, an ancient text that lays this all out. Leviticus 23, the appointed festivals of the Lord. Yeah, it's basically a whole calendar of these appointed festivals and sacred assemblies, things commanded directly to Moses for the Israelites. So our mission, our deep dive today, is to unpack these, understand what made them tick, their timing, what they required, and maybe what they tell us about life, community, faith, for people just starting out. By the end, you should have a pretty solid grasp of each festival, what it involved, and why it mattered. Okay, let's dig into this blueprint for a sacred year. What's really interesting right off the bat is before you even hit the yearly stuff, the text sets up this like fundamental weekly rhythm.
It says 6 days when you may work, okay, standard enough. But the seventh day is a day of Sabbath rest, a day of sacred assembly. And this is key. You are not to do any work. Wherever you live, it is a Sabbath to the Lord. Not just a suggestion, like a real command, every single week.
Exactly. And that's the foundation. The weekly Sabbath, it really underpins the whole festival calendar. It creates this constant rhythm, stop work, gather together. It sets this pattern of sacred time, of rest that just flows through everything else. It's a pretty powerful statement about pausing, about devotion being maybe more important than just nonstop work. Kind of revolutionary, really, for back then.
Okay, so from that weekly foundation, we move into the annual cycle, starting in the spring, big celebrations. The text lays it out. The Lord's Passover begins at twilight on the 14th day of the first month. Then boom, right after that, the Lord's Festival of Unleavened Bread on the 15th day of that month, and that goes for 7 days. The main rule, you must eat bread made without yeast. Simple, but significant. Also, the first and seventh days are special. Hold a sacred assembly and do no regular work. And through all 7 days, present a food offering to the Lord.
Yeah, and what's really telling is how they're back-to-back like that. Passover remembers the big escape from Egypt, right? But then the week of unleavened bread, that would have been this, physical daily reminder of the rush, the liberation, eating that specific bread for 7 days. It wasn't just a ritual in your head. It was like reliving it together as a community, forging that shared memory. Not just a one-off event, but, something you experienced every day for a whole week.
Right. Very immersive. And as the year goes on, you see this deep link to farming, to the agricultural cycle. It says, okay, when you get into the land, you start harvesting. You need to bring a sheaf of the first grain to the priest. And the priest, he's supposed to wave the sheaf before the Lord, so it will be accepted on your behalf. He does this on the day after the Sabbath. There were other offerings too, like a lamb, grain, wine. But here's a strict rule. You must not eat any bread or roasted or new grain until the very day you bring this offering to your God. And it calls this a lasting ordinance, something they had to keep doing. Then building right on that first offering, you get the Festival of Weeks. You count from that day they brought the wave offering, the day after the Sabbath, you count 7 full weeks, so 50 days. And on day 50, you present an offering of new grain to the Lord.
Okay.
Now, here's where it gets interesting. This offering includes 2 loaves made of 2/10 of an ephah of the finest flour baked with yeast. See? Leavened bread this time, presented as a wave offering of firstfruits. A real contrast to the unleavened bread festival earlier. And again, lots of animal sacrifices involved, and it's a sacred assembly, no regular work, and again, lasting ordinance.
It does raise that question, doesn't it? Why 50 days exactly? And why the switch to leavened bread here? Well, you could see it as a progression. That first sheaf, that's like the very beginning of the harvest, right? An acknowledgement. But counting 50 days, that leads you to the completion of the grain harvest. So the shift maybe from unleavened, representing haste, beginnings, to leavened, it could symbolize, settled abundance, thanksgiving for the full harvest being in, celebrating the provision properly once it's all gathered.
That makes sense. And, right in the middle of these harvest rules, there's this really powerful ethical command just embedded there. It says, flat out, when you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap to the very edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Leave them for the poor and for the foreigner residing among you.
It's profound, isn't it? It shows that God's instructions weren't just about, rituals and farming schedules. It was about building social responsibility right into getting rich off the land, basically. It's like a built-in safety net, making sure the vulnerable, the poor, the immigrant were looked after directly by the community's actions, compassion woven right in.
Yeah, really striking. Okay, so the year moves on into autumn, and here we get this cluster of really important kind of solemn observances. First up, the first day of the 7th month. That's the Festival of Trumpets, described as a day of Sabbath rest, a sacred assembly commemorated with trumpet blasts. Simple instructions, really. Do no regular work, but present a food offering to the Lord. The sound seems key here. Then, just 9 days later comes what's arguably the heaviest, most significant day, the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. This is the 10th day of this 7th month. It's a sacred assembly, yes, but the main command is to deny yourselves, which, well, mostly meant fasting, afflicting yourselves, and presenting a food offering. But critically, do not do any work on that day, because it is the Day of Atonement, when atonement is made for you. And the warnings are serious. Anyone who doesn't deny themselves must be cut off from the people. Anyone who does any work, God says they'll be destroyed. It's a total day of Sabbath rest from evening to evening. And again, lasting ordinance.
Wow, yeah. That Day of Atonement, it really is unique in demanding that personal affliction and making that direct link between what you do or don't do and your place in the community. Being cut off is serious language. It's the one day for this massive corporate and individual cleansing, you could say. The weight of it really shows how vital this national moment of humility, of getting right with God, was supposed to be. A total reset.
A heavy day, for sure. But then, right after that intense period, the annual cycle wraps up with something totally different. A week-long vibrant celebration. The Festival of Tabernacles, or Sukkot, starts on the 15th day of the 7th month, lasts for 7 days. The first day is a sacred assembly, do no regular work. Then 7 days of presenting food offerings. And then there's an 8th day, another sacred assembly, another offering. It's called the closing special assembly. No work then either. This whole festival happens after you've gathered the crops of the land, so it's tied to the harvest completion too. And the 1st and 8th days are Sabbath rests. But here's the really cool visual part. They're told to take branches from luxuriant trees, from palms, willows, and other leafy trees, and rejoice. Okay, celebration. But then this. Live in temporary shelters for 7 days. All native-born Israelites are to live in such shelters. Booths, basically. And the reason given is explicit. So your descendants will know that I had the Israelites live in temporary shelters when I brought them out of Egypt. Another lasting ordinance.
That is just such a powerful way to remember, isn't it? It's not just thinking about the past. It's like physically reenacting it, living like nomads again for a week. It's this hands-on history lesson for every generation, reminding them where they came from, their dependence on God and the wilderness whole journey. It turns history into this living sensory experience, something that would have really shaped how every Israelite saw themselves and their story.
Absolutely. So when you step back and look at this whole calendar, the weekly Sabbath, all these annual festivals, what's the big picture? I mean, they're not just random holidays, right? The text sums them up. The Lord's appointed festivals, sacred assemblies for bringing food offerings. It lists all the types: burnt offerings, grain, sacrifices, drink offerings, day by day. And then it adds, these are in addition to the regular weekly Sabbaths, in addition to your normal gifts, vows, free will offerings. It's a whole layered system.
Exactly. If you connect all those dots, what you see is this incredibly comprehensive structure for their time. It's meticulously designed. It weaves together, divine commands, remembering history, the farming year, taking care of each other, all into the actual fabric of daily and yearly life. It's like a total blueprint given through Moses that would have just profoundly shaped their identity as a nation, how they saw the world, their whole purpose, every rhythm, every party, every moment of reflection. It all served to connect them deeper to their story, their God, their calling.
So we've walked through this amazing ancient calendar, from the weekly Sabbath rest to the spring cycle of Passover and unleavened bread, the harvest times of firstfruits and weeks, and then that intense autumn period, trumpets, the solemn Day of Atonement, and the joyful Festival of Tabernacles. Each one, an appointed festival, a sacred assembly with its own timing, its own rules, its own offerings, all straight from Leviticus 23. So here's something to think about. Imagine having a calendar structured that intentionally, weaving together rest, memory, and the cycles of nature, and looking out for others. How might that kind of structure shape not just, religious practice, but a whole society's view of the world, its daily rhythms? How might any community, then or even now, change if it embraced that kind of pattern, sacred time, purposeful action, letting the past really shape the present?